"If death awaits me, let your kiss come first," she whispered to the Comanche warrior Western Love. Nestled at the edge of a vast, untamed prairie, the farm was both a sanctuary and a cage. She loved the open skies, the golden fields that stretched farther than she could see, and the distant hills that seemed to hold secrets she might one day uncover. Yet she knew life in the frontier was unpredictable. Every day could bring a new challenge, a wildfire, a storm, a sick animal, or worse, trouble from people who saw settlers as easy targets. Her family had worked this land for generations. Her father, a tall man with calloused hands and a quiet determination, taught her how to care for the livestock and grow crops. Her mother, gentle and thoughtful, filled their home with warmth, teaching Clara to read and write, to sew, and to find beauty even in harsh surroundings. But Clara had always felt that she needed more than what the farm offered. She wanted adventure, to meet people whose lives were different from hers, to feel the pulse of the unknown. It was late afternoon when the wind changed, carrying with it the scent of dust and something else, something wild, sharp, and unfamiliar. Clara noticed it first when she was tending to the chickens near the edge of the woods that bordered the homestead. The birds quieted, their clucks and flaps fading into uneasy murmurs. Clara froze, her heart beating faster. She had grown up hearing stories about Comanche warriors and their raids. She had been taught to respect them from afar and to be cautious. But now, as she stared into the darkening tree line, the stories felt suddenly real. A shadow moved among the trees. Clara's breath caught in her throat. She wanted to run, to call for her parents, but something held her still. The figure was tall, strong, and moved with a quiet confidence that made her feel both frightened and strangely curious. She had never seen anyone like him. His eyes, dark and deep, scanned the land carefully, alert to every sound, every movement. He carried himself with a grace that spoke of skill, of life lived close to nature and danger. For a moment, Clara and the warrior just watched each other. There was no immediate threat in his posture, but she felt the weight of history in that silence, the stories of conflict, the fear her parents had warned her about. And yet, there was something else, something that made her hesitate before running. It was as if the wind itself had paused, waiting to see what would happen next. Suddenly, a rustle came from the other side of the trees. A group of raiders had been spotted, people who had long resented the settlers, expansion into lands they considered their own. Panic surged through Clara. She knew she had to act quickly. She ducked behind a large oak, her heart hammering, and prayed she would not be seen. But the warrior stepped forward, moving with precision and speed. In moments, he was between her and the danger, a shield against the unknown threat. Clara could hardly believe what she saw. He confronted the raiders with calm authority, using gestures and words she could not understand. She could see the respect and fear in the raiders' eyes as they backed away, eventually disappearing into the trees. When the danger was gone, the warrior turned to Clara. His expression was unreadable, yet she sensed no malice, only caution. "You should not be here alone," he said softly, his voice firm but not unkind. Clara did not understand his words completely, but the tone was clear enough. She nodded, unable to speak at first, her mouth dry. The warrior motioned for her to follow. Despite the fear that still clung to her, Clara felt a strange trust growing in her chest. He led her through the woods, his steps silent on the soft ground, and soon they reached a small clearing where the sunlight fell in golden shafts. Clara noticed the care in his movements, the way he avoided breaking branches, the way he scanned the surroundings constantly. He was not just strong, he was wise, experienced, and deeply connected to the land. Clara wanted to ask him so many questions, but she remembered the stories she had heard about Comanche warriors. They were proud, skilled, and wary of outsiders. She knew that her curiosity could be dangerous, yet she could not hold it back. Who are you?" she finally managed to whisper. The warrior studied her for a long moment. Then, in a few broken words and gestures, he told her his name was Quanah. He did not reveal much else, only that he was responsible for the land and its people. Clara understood enough to feel a mix of awe and caution. She realized that the stories she had heard did not capture the full truth of him, his strength, his intelligence, and the quiet dignity that seemed to surround him. As they walked, Clara began to notice the small details that spoke of his life. The way his boots were worn but cared for, the marks on his hands from years of work, the careful way he carried water and food. She began to understand that he was not just a warrior. He was a man who had survived many dangers, who had learned to read the land and its people with unmatched skill. They came to a small stream where he motioned for her to drink. Hesitant at first, she knelt by the water, her hands trembling slightly. The cool water was refreshing, and as she drank, she felt a strange sense of calm. Quanah watched her silently, then took a sip himself. It was a simple moment, but it bridged the gap between them, a quiet understanding forming without the need for many words. As the sun began to set, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink, Clara realized how far she had wandered from her home. Fear returned in a new form, anxiety for what her parents would think, concern for the safety of the homestead. Quanah noticed her tension and gestured for her to stay calm. He seemed to understand that she needed reassurance, not just protection. That evening, as they rested near a small fire he had built with surprising skill, Clara reflected on the day's events. She had expected fear, perhaps even danger, but what she found was something she had never imagined. A connection, tentative yet powerful, with someone from a world she had only known in stories. She realized that this encounter could change her life forever, opening a door to experiences and emotions she had never dared to hope for. Quanah did not speak much, but his presence was enough. Clara watched the firelight dance on his face, noticing the lines of experience, the sharpness of his gaze softened by a quiet gentleness. She understood that he was not an enemy, not someone to be feared blindly. He was a man of courage and honor, shaped by the harsh realities of the frontier, yet capable of deep empathy. That night, as she lay under the stars, Clara felt a mixture of fear and exhilaration. The world was bigger and wilder than she had ever imagined. And yet, for the first time, she felt a strange sense of hope, a hope that even in the midst of danger, trust and understanding could exist between people from different worlds. She thought of her parents, of the farm, of the life she had always known, and she realized that the encounter with Quanah might change her forever, teaching her that courage often comes in unexpected forms, and that the heart can find connection even in the most unlikely places. By the time the first stars appeared in the night sky, Clara knew one thing for certain. Her life had shifted in a way she could not yet fully understand. The frontier was no longer just a place of survival. It was a place of discovery, of learning, and perhaps of love. And somewhere in the darkness, Quanah's eyes watched over her, not as a captor, but as a protector, a guide, and maybe, just maybe, someone who would become part of her story in ways she could never have imagined. The morning light fell softly across the clearing, painting everything in gentle gold. Clara awoke to the sound of birdsong and the soft rush of the stream nearby. She stretched, careful not to disturb Quanah, who had been awake for some time, observing the surroundings with the same quiet intensity as the day before. She realized that sleep had been uneasy. Her mind kept replaying the events of yesterday, the encounter with the raiders, the sharpness of Quanah's movements, and the way he had protected her without hesitation. Clara rose slowly and began tending to the small campfire, her hands moving almost automatically. She felt a strange mixture of nervousness and curiosity. The warrior had shown her courage and skill, but he was still a stranger from a world she barely understood. Yet she felt a growing respect and even a flicker of admiration for the man who had saved her life. Quanah finally spoke, his voice low and steady. "You must eat," he said, pointing toward the small bundle of dried meat and berries he had prepared. Clara nodded and took the food, realizing that her body needed nourishment even as her mind raced with thoughts and questions. She watched him closely as he moved with ease and confidence, each action deliberate and careful. There was a rhythm to the way he lived, a harmony with the land that fascinated her. They began to move slowly through the woods, Quanah leading the way. He did not speak much, but his gestures guided Clara safely along hidden paths, across shallow streams, and through thickets that might have caught an unwary traveler. Clara struggled at first, uncertain of how to keep pace, but Quanah's patient presence reassured her. She began to notice the small lessons hidden in his movements, how to step lightly, how to sense the wind, and how to notice even the faintest sound of danger. By mid-morning, they reached a ridge overlooking a wide valley. Clara gasped at the sight. The land stretched endlessly, rolling hills dotted with clusters of trees, and in the distance, a river sparkled in the sunlight. It was beautiful and dangerous all at once. She felt small in comparison, but also exhilarated, as if the vastness of the land promised endless possibilities. Quanah gestured toward the valley and then back to himself, as if asking her to understand the importance of knowing the land. Clara nodded, feeling a deep respect for the way he moved with knowledge and care. She realized that this was more than survival, it was a way of life. Quanah had learned to read the signs of the world around him, the tracks of animals, the patterns of clouds, and the subtle changes in the wind. He lived with awareness and wisdom, and Clara felt honored to witness it. As they descended into the valley, they encountered traces of the past, a small abandoned homestead, remnants of fences and tools left behind. Clara's curiosity got the better of her. She asked questions about the people who had lived there, and Quanah responded with gestures and a few words, telling stories of families who had come and gone, of struggles and survival. Clara listened intently, fascinated by the lives of those who had walked the same land before her. The day passed with small lessons and quiet moments. Clara began to feel a growing bond with Quanah. She noticed the way he moved with purpose, the care in his actions, and the subtle kindness he showed in small gestures. At one point, he helped her climb a steep embankment, placing a strong hand behind her back. She felt a warmth in that touch, a reassurance that went beyond mere protection. Yet she also felt a flutter of something new, an emotion she had never experienced before. By late afternoon, they stopped near a quiet pond surrounded by willows. Clara watched the reflection of the sky in the water and realized how tired she was. Quanah sat a short distance away, sharpening a knife with careful precision. The rhythm of his movements was almost meditative, and Clara felt a sense of calm settle over her. For the first time since the raid, she allowed herself to relax. She began to talk, softly at first, asking about his life, his people, and his travels. Quanah listened, nodding occasionally, and responded with short sentences and gestures that Clara could understand. She learned that he had grown up moving across the plains, learning the ways of his people, and that he carried with him the responsibility of protecting not only himself, but also the traditions and lives of those around him. Clara felt a growing admiration for him, not just for his skill and bravery, but for his wisdom and sense of duty. As the sun began to set, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink, Clara noticed how the shadows played across Quanah's face. She felt an unexpected pull in her chest, a mix of fear and longing. She realized that the connection she had felt the day before was becoming stronger. It was no longer just about gratitude for saving her life. It was about understanding, trust, and perhaps something deeper. That evening, as they prepared a small fire for warmth, Clara asked about his past battles and journeys. Quanah's eyes darkened slightly, hinting at experiences he did not fully share. She respected his silence, sensing that some stories were too personal, too painful, or too sacred to speak aloud. Yet, even in silence, there was communication. In the way he moved, the way he watched her, and the way he ensured her safety, Clara understood more than words could convey. The night deepened, and the stars filled the sky with light. Clara lay back on a soft patch of grass, feeling a connection to the vast land around her and to the man beside her. She thought about her family, about the farm, and about the life she had left behind temporarily. And yet, she also felt a sense of freedom, a sense of discovery, and a deep curiosity about the path that lay ahead with Quanah. She remembered the words she had whispered the day before in a moment of vulnerability. "If death awaits me, let your kiss come first." The memory made her cheeks warm, and she realized that her feelings were growing stronger. She did not fully understand them yet, but she knew that she trusted Quanah more than anyone she had ever met. And in that trust, she felt something precious: hope, courage, and the faint stirrings of love. Quanah, sitting nearby, seemed to sense her thoughts. He did not speak, but his gaze softened as he looked at her. It was a look filled with understanding, respect, and perhaps his own silent acknowledgement of the bond that was forming. Clara felt reassured. In the wilderness, surrounded by uncertainty and danger, they had found a fragile connection, built on trust, bravery, and shared experience. The night passed slowly. Clara and Quanah slept under the stars, separated by only a few feet. She listened to the sounds of the prairie, the rustling leaves, the distant howl of wolves, the whisper of the wind, and felt a strange peace. She realized that danger would always be present in this land, but she also understood that courage and trust could make even the most uncertain paths bearable. By morning, Clara had grown more confident. She moved with greater ease, observing and learning from Quanah as they prepared for the day. He taught her how to find edible plants, how to track the movements of animals, and how to sense changes in the weather. Each lesson was a small adventure, each moment a chance to learn and grow. Clara felt herself changing, becoming stronger, more aware, and more capable than she had ever imagined. The journey continued, and with it, their bond deepened. They faced small challenges, crossing streams, avoiding dangerous animals, and navigating difficult terrain, but each obstacle brought them closer together. Clara realized that Quanah was not just a protector. He was a teacher, a guide, and a companion. And in return, Quanah seemed to value her courage, her curiosity, and the way she adapted to the wilderness with determination and intelligence. By the end of Part 2, Clara understood that her journey with Quanah was only beginning. The bond they had formed in just a few days was rare and precious, built on trust, mutual respect, and shared experience. She did not know what the future held, but she knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. And in that realization, she found a courage and hope she had never known before, a courage that would carry her through the adventures and trials to come. The days passed slowly, yet each day seemed fuller than the one before. Clara had begun to feel a rhythm to life on the prairie that she had never known at home. Waking before dawn, walking with Quanah through the tall grasses, listening to the whisper of the wind, it all felt alive in a way that was both exciting and humbling. She was learning more than just survival. She was learning patience, awareness, and the value of silence. Every small lesson from Quanah carried a depth she could feel, even if she didn't fully understand it. They had reached a new part of the prairie, a wide expanse of rolling hills dotted with wildflowers and clusters of trees. The land was breathtaking, but Clara also noticed how dangerous it could be. There were steep ravines, hidden streams, and animals that watched silently from the edges of the woods. Quanah moved through the land with a careful confidence that made Clara trust him completely. She was beginning to see him not just as a protector, but as someone whose knowledge of the world was almost magical in its precision. As they rested by a small grove in the middle of the day, Clara found herself stealing glances at him. Quanah had removed his jacket in the warmth of the afternoon, and she noticed the muscles in his arms and the way he moved with quiet strength. There was something comforting about his presence, something that made her feel safe and yet alive in a way she could not explain. She had never known a man like him, and the thought of him brought a strange flutter to her chest. Quanah, noticing her attention, looked toward her with calm eyes. There was no mocking, no judgment, only an understanding that seemed to read her thoughts. Clara quickly looked away, feeling a mix of embarrassment and curiosity. She realized that the emotions she was feeling were new and confusing, but she could not deny them. Something was growing between them, something delicate and precious, that could be easily damaged by fear or misunderstanding. Their journey continued, and they soon encountered signs of other travelers, a set of footprints that did not belong to them, the remnants of a small campfire that had been abandoned. Clara's heart raced. She knew the prairie could be dangerous, and even though Quanah had kept her safe so far, she understood that threats could come at any moment. Quanah studied the tracks carefully, his eyes sharp and observant. Then, with a series of hand signals and quiet gestures, he guided Clara to follow a safer path. She realized that his skill was more than survival. It was an art, a way of reading the land and predicting the movements of others. As the afternoon wore on, Clara began to ask more about his life. She wanted to understand him, to know what had shaped the man who had saved her life and now guided her through this wild and beautiful land. Quanah spoke carefully, sharing small pieces of his story, his childhood, his training, the lessons his elders had taught him. He spoke of the importance of family, honor, and respect for the world around him. Clara listened intently, fascinated by the depth of his experience. She realized that he carried not only his own history but the weight of generations, a responsibility that was both heavy and noble. That evening, they made camp near a small river. Clara watched as Quanah built a fire, his movements precise and deliberate. He cooked a simple meal with skill and care, offering her a portion with a gentle gesture. They ate in silence at first, listening to the sounds of the river and the distant calls of birds settling for the night. Then Clara spoke softly, asking him about the meaning of some of the signs he had used while guiding her. Quanah responded with patience, showing her how the land communicated through subtle changes, shifts in the wind, the behavior of animals, the movement of clouds. Clara felt a deep respect for him, not just for his strength, but for his wisdom and his ability to teach without demanding. As darkness fell, the stars began to appear in the sky, sparkling above the wide prairie. Clara lay on her blanket looking up, feeling the vastness of the world around her. She felt small, yet connected to everything, the land, the river, the wind, and the man sitting nearby. She realized that her fear was slowly giving way to trust, and that trust was blossoming into something more. The bond she had felt from the beginning was growing stronger, shaped by shared experiences, quiet moments, and mutual respect. Quanah, sitting beside her, seemed to sense her thoughts. He did not speak, but his gaze softened, and he offered her a small, reassuring smile. It was a look that conveyed understanding, care, and perhaps a recognition of the feelings she had not yet dared to express. Clara felt her heart race, realizing that the connection between them was no longer simply about survival. It had become something personal, delicate, and precious. Over the next few days, their journey brought them closer together. They faced small challenges, a sudden rainstorm, a tricky river crossing, a wild animal that had wandered too near their path. Each challenge tested their skills and their patience, but also strengthened their bond. Clara found herself relying on Quanah not only for protection, but also for guidance, comfort, and reassurance. In return, Quanah seemed to value her courage, her intelligence, and her growing ability to navigate the wilderness alongside him. One afternoon, as they rested on a hill overlooking the valley, Clara could no longer hold back her feelings. She turned to him, her voice barely above a whisper. "Quanah, I don't understand all of this, but I know I trust you. More than I should, perhaps, but I do." Quanah looked at her, his expression calm but unreadable. He did not speak immediately. Then slowly he reached out and took her hand, a gesture both gentle and powerful. Clara felt a warmth spread through her chest, a mix of relief, happiness, and fear. She realized that the bond between them had moved beyond words, beyond gestures. It had become something real, something that both of them could feel deeply. That night, under a sky full of stars, Clara and Quanah shared their first real conversation about feelings. She spoke of her fear, her excitement, and the strange mixture of emotions that came with being in the wilderness with him. He spoke of his duty, his respect for her courage, and the trust he felt growing between them. It was a conversation that built understanding, connection, and a foundation for something neither had expected when they first met. Even as they grew closer, Clara was aware of the dangers that still surrounded them. The prairie was unpredictable, and human threats could appear without warning. She thought about her family back at the homestead, about the world she had left behind, and about the challenges that lay ahead. Yet with Quanah beside her, she felt stronger, braver, and more capable than she had ever been. The next morning, as the sun rose over the hills, Clara realized that their journey was no longer simply about survival or learning. It was about trust, understanding, and the subtle, delicate beginnings of love. She did not yet know where this path would lead, but she felt certain that whatever happened, the bond between her and Quanah would guide them through the dangers and challenges to come. Their days continued with exploration, learning, and moments of quiet intimacy. Clara discovered small joys in the simple things. The way Quanah's eyes would follow her when she explored, the gentle way he would correct her movements when climbing, the quiet laughter that sometimes escaped them when they shared a small success or discovered something new. Together, each moment was a thread, weaving a tapestry of connection, trust, and growing affection. By the end of this part of their journey, Clara felt that she had changed profoundly. She had faced fear, learned new skills, and discovered a bond with a man whose world had seemed so different from hers. Yet, in the wilderness, with its dangers and wonders, she had found trust, understanding, and a hint of love. She realized that their journey was far from over, that challenges and choices lay ahead, but she also understood that together, they could face whatever came, guided by courage, wisdom, and the delicate, powerful connection that had begun to grow between them. The early morning. Air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of wildflowers and damp earth. Clara awoke to a distant sound that made her heart race, voices, shouting, and the unmistakable clatter of hooves on hard ground. She sat up, her eyes wide, scanning the horizon. Something was wrong. The peaceful rhythm of their journey had been broken. Quanah was already alert, his eyes sharp and unblinking. He gestured for Clara to stay low, his movements swift and precise. She followed without hesitation, feeling a rush of adrenaline as they moved silently through the tall grass. The distant voices grew louder, and soon Clara could make out the sound of people shouting commands and the metallic ring of weapons being readied. Quanah stopped at the edge of a small ridge, signaling Clara to stay behind him. From their vantage point, they could see a group of men approaching, a band of raiders, more organized and numerous than those they had encountered before. Clara's stomach tightened with fear, but Quanah's calm presence reminded her that panic would not help them. "They will pass us if we stay hidden," Quanah whispered, his voice low but firm. Clara nodded, trusting his judgment. Her heart pounded, but she felt a strange confidence in his presence. She realized that fear, when shared with someone you trust, could be tempered with courage. They waited as the raiders approached, moving with practiced stealth. Clara watched Quanah, noticing how he observed every movement, every sound, and every shadow. He was like a hawk, aware of everything in his surroundings. She felt grateful for his skill and for the way he had guided her safely through the wilderness. The raiders paused near the river, arguing among themselves. Quanah took the opportunity to lead Clara quietly along a narrow path that would keep them out of sight. The path was rough, winding through thick underbrush and over fallen logs. Clara struggled at first, slipping on loose soil and tripping over roots, but Quanah's steady hand and patient guidance helped her regain balance. Each step taught her more about the land and how to move with awareness and caution. As they moved deeper into the woods, Clara could feel her muscles growing tired, but she pushed on. She knew that the danger was real and that every moment of hesitation could be costly. Yet, even in the midst of fear, she felt a growing sense of determination. She was learning not only to survive, but to face challenges with courage and intelligence. By midday, they reached a small clearing where they could rest briefly. Clara noticed how Quanah surveyed the surroundings before allowing her to sit. He spoke softly, teaching her how to observe signs of danger, broken twigs, unusual tracks, and subtle changes in the wind. Clara absorbed every word, realizing that these lessons were not just about survival. They were about understanding the world and responding to it with awareness and respect. They ate a small meal in silence, the tension from the morning still lingering in the air. Clara felt a strange mix of fear and excitement. She was frightened by the dangers they faced, yet she also felt alive in a way she had never known before. Each challenge brought her closer to Quanah, and each moment of trust strengthened the bond between them. As the sun began to descend, they continued their journey, moving carefully to avoid the raiders. The path led them to a narrow canyon, where the walls rose steeply on either side. Clara's heart skipped a beat as she realized the danger of the terrain. One misstep could lead to serious injury. Quanah, however, moved with confidence, his footsteps precise and deliberate. He guided her along the safest route, explaining quietly how to balance, how to use her hands, and how to read the rocks for stability. Suddenly, a loud shout echoed through the canyon. The raiders had spotted them. Clara's heart raced, and fear threatened to take over, but Quanah's calm demeanor steadied her. He grabbed her hand and pulled her behind a large boulder, shielding her from view. Clara's breath came in short gasps as she realized how close danger had come. Quanah quickly assessed the situation. Using the shadows and natural cover, he devised a plan to move them safely out of the canyon. Clara watched in awe as he executed it with precision, guiding her step by step. Each movement was calculated, each gesture purposeful. She felt a deep admiration for his skill and a profound gratitude for his protection. By nightfall, they had escaped the immediate danger, finding a secluded spot where they could rest safely. Clara collapsed onto the ground, exhausted but relieved. Quanah built a small fire, the flickering flames casting shadows across their faces. He offered her food and water, speaking softly to reassure her. Clara felt a warmth in her chest, not just from the fire, but from the realization that she had survived another day because of their trust and teamwork. As they sat by the fire, Clara found herself reflecting on the bond that had grown between them. She thought about the words she had whispered to Quanah days before, about the kiss and the trust that had been implied. She realized that her feelings had deepened, that she cared for him more than she had expected, and that their connection was no longer simple friendship. It was something fragile, delicate, and powerful, a bond built in the midst of danger and trust. Quanah seemed to sense her thoughts. He did not speak, but his gaze softened, and he offered her a small, understanding smile. Clara felt her heart swell, knowing that the feelings were mutual, even if unspoken. The danger they had faced together had strengthened their connection, showing them that trust and courage could create a bond stronger than fear. The night passed with the sounds of the wilderness surrounding them, the rustling of leaves, the distant call of an owl, and the gentle flow of the river nearby. Clara lay awake for a long time, thinking about the events of the day and the challenges that lay ahead. She realized that the world was larger and more dangerous than she had ever imagined, but she also understood that with Quanah by her side, she could face whatever came. By morning, Clara felt a renewed sense of determination. She moved with confidence alongside Quanah, observing his techniques and practicing them herself. She noticed how his eyes constantly scanned the surroundings, how he adjusted their path to avoid danger, and how he remained calm even in tense situations. Clara felt inspired by his strength and skill, and she knew that she wanted to continue learning from him, not just to survive, but to grow as a person. As they traveled, they encountered more signs of life in the prairie, tracks of animals, distant smoke from other travelers, and small natural wonders that Clara had never noticed before. Quanah encouraged her to observe everything carefully, teaching her that awareness was the key to safety and understanding. Clara felt her mind opening, her senses sharpening, and her confidence growing with each passing moment. One afternoon, as they rested near a quiet stream, Clara spoke softly about her family and the farm she had left behind. Quanah listened attentively, nodding and offering small gestures of comfort. Clara realized that she could share her thoughts with him without fear of judgment, that he understood her in a way that no one else had. The connection between them felt unbreakable, forged in the fire of shared danger, trust, and understanding. The following days brought more challenges. They faced sudden storms, tricky river crossings, and difficult terrain. Each obstacle tested their skills and their trust in one another. Clara found herself relying on Quanah not just for guidance, but for reassurance and support. In return, Quanah seemed to value her courage, her intelligence, and her growing ability to navigate the wilderness alongside him. Through these experiences, Clara realized that their bond was deeper than she had imagined. It was not simply a matter of trust or friendship. It was a connection built on shared experience, mutual respect, and the quiet understanding that they could face anything together. She knew that whatever dangers lay ahead, they would confront them side by side, strengthened by the bond they had formed in the wilderness. By the end of this part of their journey, Clara understood that their relationship had changed in profound ways. She no longer saw Quanah simply as a protector or guide. He was a companion, a confidant, and someone whose presence brought her comfort and courage. The trials they had faced had strengthened their bond, showing them that even in the harshest and most dangerous circumstances, trust, bravery, and connection could flourish. And yet, Clara also knew that challenges were far from over. The prairie was vast and unpredictable, and human threats could appear at any moment. But she felt a deep confidence that with Quanah by her side, they could face whatever came, guided by courage, wisdom, and the unspoken bond that had grown stronger with each day. The morning sun rose gently over the prairie, casting a warm, golden light on the rolling hills. Clara stretched, feeling the cool breeze on her face and the soft earth beneath her hands. For the first time in days, she felt a quiet sense of hope. The dangers of the journey had tested her courage, her patience, and her trust, but she had emerged stronger. And beside her, Quanah sat silently, watching the horizon with his familiar, steady gaze. She knew he had been through more than she could imagine, yet he remained calm, alert, and unwavering. They continued their journey toward the northern valley, a place Quanah had described as safe for travelers. The path was long and challenging, but Clara felt a confidence she had never known before. She moved with awareness, observing the subtle signs in the land, listening to the whispers of the wind, and relying on the lessons Quanah had taught her. Each step was a reminder of how far she had come, not just in distance, but in courage, skill, and understanding. As they walked, Clara thought about their shared experiences. The moments of fear and exhilaration, the lessons learned, the quiet evenings under the stars, and the conversations that had deepened their bond. She realized that her feelings for Quanah had grown stronger, more complicated, and far more meaningful than she could have imagined. There was a connection between them that went beyond words, built on trust, shared danger, and mutual respect. Quanah noticed her reflection and slowed his pace. Without speaking, he reached out and took her hand. The simple gesture sent a warmth through Clara's chest, a reminder that she was not alone, that she had someone beside her who understood her, protected her, and valued her presence. She squeezed his hand lightly, feeling the reassurance and strength in his grasp. In that moment, the vast prairie around them felt smaller, more intimate, as if the world had narrowed to the space they shared. By midday, they reached the edge of a dense forest. The air smelled of pine and damp earth, and sunlight filtered through the branches, creating patterns on the forest floor. Quanah led them carefully along a narrow path, pointing out tracks and signs of wildlife. Clara observed eagerly, noting the movements of birds, the shapes of animal tracks, and the subtle changes in the ground that indicated hidden water. She felt a deep connection to the land and to Quanah, who had taught her to see the world with new eyes. As they rested by a small stream, Clara asked Quanah about his family and the people he had grown up with. His eyes softened, and he spoke quietly of the lessons his elders had taught him, the importance of honor, courage, and respect for both people and nature. Clara listened intently, fascinated by the depth of his experience. She realized that he carried not just the weight of his own life but the traditions and wisdom of generations. It was humbling, and it deepened her admiration and affection for him. Their peaceful moment was interrupted by a sudden noise, the crack of a branch underfoot. Clara's heart raced as she looked toward the source, but Quanah quickly gestured for her to stay calm. From the shadows emerged a lone traveler, weary and cautious, who had lost his way. Quanah approached slowly, speaking in a language Clara did not fully understand, yet the traveler soon relaxed. Clara watched the interaction, realizing how skilled Quanah was at reading people and situations, how he could sense fear, trust, and intention with a few simple gestures. After ensuring the traveler was safe and had directions to continue, they resumed their journey. Clara felt a sense of pride in her growing awareness, her ability to navigate the world alongside Quanah, and her understanding of his guidance. She realized that she had become more than just a follower. She was learning to move confidently and thoughtfully through the world, guided by his wisdom but empowered by her own courage. As evening approached, they found a quiet meadow to rest. The sky was painted with hues of orange and purple, and the first stars began to twinkle. Clara and Quanah sat together, sharing a small meal. The atmosphere was calm, filled with the soft sounds of nature, the rustle of leaves, the distant call of a bird settling for the night, and the gentle murmur of a nearby stream. Clara felt a profound sense of peace, a feeling she had not known for many days. In the quiet of the evening, Clara spoke softly. "Quanah, I don't know what tomorrow will bring, but I know I want to face it with you. Whatever happens, I want to stay by your side." Her voice trembled slightly, but her words were filled with honesty and courage. Quanah looked at her, his eyes steady and warm. He did not speak immediately, but his hand found hers again, squeezing it gently. Then in a soft, deliberate voice he said, "Clara, your courage, your heart, you have earned my respect, my trust, and more." His words were simple, but they carried a weight and sincerity that made Clara's heart swell. She felt a deep sense of relief and happiness, knowing that their bond was mutual, that the connection they had nurtured through fear, learning, and shared experiences was now solid and real. The night was long, but Clara slept with a sense of comfort and security she had never felt before. Quanah stayed nearby, vigilant yet calm, a steady presence in the vast, wild landscape. Clara dreamed of home, of family, and of the adventures she had shared with him. She felt a sense of completion, knowing that the hardships they had faced together had led them to a place of trust, understanding, and love. Morning came with soft sunlight filtering through the trees. Clara and Quanah packed their belongings and prepared to continue their journey. The prairie stretched ahead, vast and beautiful, and Clara felt a sense of excitement and anticipation. They moved with ease, their steps synchronized, their trust in each other evident in every gesture. As they traveled, Clara thought about the future. She knew that life would continue to be challenging, that dangers would not disappear entirely, and that they would face obstacles together. But she also knew that they were stronger because of what they had endured. Their bond, forged through trust, courage, and shared experience, was unbreakable. She felt confident that whatever came, they would face it side by side. In the late afternoon, they reached a small hill overlooking a wide valley. The view took Clara's breath away. Rolling fields stretched as far as she could see, dotted with trees, rivers, and distant homesteads. It was a reminder of how far they had come, not just in distance but in life and understanding. Clara realized that the journey had changed her completely. Her courage, her awareness, and her heart had all grown, and she knew that she owed much of this growth to Quanah. As the sun set, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, Clara turned to Quanah. "I want to stay with you," she said softly, her eyes meeting his. "Not because I have to, but because I want to." Quanah's face softened and a small, genuine smile appeared. He nodded, his hand brushing gently against hers. "And I want you by my side, Clara," he replied. "Whatever the future holds, we face it together." The two of them sat quietly, watching the sun disappear beyond the horizon. The prairie stretched endlessly around them, beautiful, dangerous, and alive. Clara felt a deep sense of peace and belonging, knowing that she had found someone who understood her, trusted her, and shared her courage. Their bond, formed in the wilderness, tested by danger and nurtured through trust and understanding, had become a source of strength, hope, and love. As darkness fell, Clara and Quanah prepared to rest for the night. The stars shone brightly, reflecting on the small stream nearby. Clara felt a profound gratitude for the journey, for the lessons learned, and for the man who had become her companion and protector. She realized that life, even in the wild and unpredictable prairie, could hold beauty, trust, and love. Before closing her eyes, Clara whispered softly, a smile touching her lips, "If death waits for me, let our courage and trust guide us, and let our hearts be together." Quanah, hearing her words, squeezed her hand gently. It was a silent promise, a shared understanding that whatever challenges awaited, they would face them with courage, trust, and love. The prairie was quiet, the night filled with gentle sounds of nature, and Clara felt a deep sense of fulfillment. She knew that life would continue to present challenges, but she also knew that with Quanah by her side, she could face anything. Their journey, though not yet over, had already taught them the value of trust, bravery, and the quiet, unspoken bonds that could form between two people who respected and cared for one another deeply. As they drifted into sleep, the stars overhead seemed to shine brighter, reflecting the hope, courage, and connection that had grown between them. Clara and Quanah had faced fear, uncertainty, and the wild unknown, and had emerged stronger, united by trust, respect, and love. The prairie stretched endlessly, a symbol of the vast possibilities and adventures that lay ahead, and together, they were ready to meet whatever the future held.